So this might be a little bit late, but a new Star Wars movie came out, and I kind of feel like I should give my opinion on it because, you know, it's Star Wars, and Star Wars is always kind of a big event, right? Well, maybe not this time. I'm Jack Fitzpatrick, and this is my review of Solo, a Star Wars story. So I thought it was really fun to have a movie set in this universe that isn't a galactic battle that will determine the entire world's status. This is just a fun kind of side adventure for one of the characters, and it feels more casual, and I really like that. The context behind some of the backstory stuff was really fun in this movie. Nothing was like contradictory. It really felt like it belonged in the Star Wars universe, you know, even if it did go in a bit of a different direction. There were some fun explanations for things, and I feel like some of the hardcore fans will probably appreciate some of this stuff a bit more than even I did. Although, in saying all that, there were some very lame references, such as how he got his blaster and how he got his name. There were some callbacks and there was some fan service, and at times these things could be a little bit too strong because honestly, like, you don't really need an explanation for why the character is named what he's named. It's just very on the nose kind of situations like these that kind of does bring the movie down just for a second. It kind of reminds you that, you know, you're watching this movie instead of like being completely immersed and like living in this world during the runtime. But honestly, these are often just like one-liners and don't really impact where we're going in any real way. So what if he got his name in some way that's maybe a little bit dumb? Like, it doesn't really matter in the end. That's just his name and that's that. It's ignorable enough if you didn't like it. But if you are a hardcore fan, you might appreciate something like this if you wanted some sort of explanation for these sorts of things. But it's things like this that are really gonna not help this movie with the people who are really, really hating on this movie, because some people are being very harsh when it comes to it. And now it's my turn to be a little bit harsh because I didn't always buy into Alden Ehrenreich, is that how you say his name? I didn't always buy him as Han Solo because, you know, you're looking at him and he's just clearly not Harrison Ford. Like, he's not gonna grow up to be him or something. He's not gonna look like him in 10 years. He looks like himself. He didn't look terrible. You could see the kind of resemblance, especially during some particular shots, but it just didn't always look exactly like him. But I did really enjoy his performance nonetheless. I found him to be really likable, and though he might not have nailed all of Harrison Ford's likeness, well, he did have the character's important notable characteristics, such as his, you know, roguish personality, and you really do buy him into the scoundrel kind of badass guy who always gets himself into trouble, even if you know on the inside that he's really just that true heroic kind of character. And opposing him were some really fun side characters, especially in Chewbacca, whose relationship with Han was nothing short of like adorable, kind of, in a way. I don't know, their relationship was just cute. Emilia Clarke's character was interesting, and I was always a little unsure of where she was going, in kind of a good, unpredictable way. Donald Glover's Lando was charming and the definition of cool and laid back. There's also a villain who, look, isn't in this movie for a whole lot of time, but I thought he was effective. Even if he wasn't on screen at all times, you could still feel his influence and the fear that everyone had for him, because he was more of this grounded, slightly more realistic feeling villain, because he was really just essentially like a street level kind of mafia guy who had lots of power and stuff over other people. I liked him. I thought he was good, even if he didn't play that big a part. Anyway, Solo, a Star Wars story, held that sense of campiness that belongs in Star Wars, but mixes it in with a bit more of a grounded feel. This was a street level Star Wars, which was interesting to see, I thought. There was one particular short scene nearing the beginning of this movie, which was like the battlegrounds of a little war that's going on that doesn't really have that much relevance to the rest of the movie. And I feel like that one shot of this battlefield is just exactly what Rogue One should have had more of. So Solo is a bit funny, a bit dramatic, and a bit action-packed. Mind you, it's not as explosive as other Star Wars films in a lot of ways, but if you ask me, it does hold up on pretty much all fronts. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was great. It doesn't at all deserve all the hate it's getting, and it's crazy that this kind of movie is bombing. I mean, look, it's still making money. It's still like making millions of dollars, but it's pretty dismal for a film with Star Wars in its title, because they were aiming to make, like, I read, around 130 million or something over its opening weekend, and it ended up making 80 million in its opening weekend, and that is just pathetic. And it's really crazy that something with such pedigree, a franchise of this level, is really doing that terribly. And it's kind of surprising, I guess. Like, a lot of people said that they weren't going to see this movie and stuff, and there's been hate going on everywhere, and people don't like the actor, and there's been all these production issues and all these problems, and people have just been against it from the start. But I just really have to say that I strongly disagree with the general consensus at the moment. And I really do feel like, though, that the hate for this movie is kind of more politically pushed. I feel like people really made up their minds before the movie even came out. And this was probably for a couple of reasons. I've been reading a bunch of stuff and like looking at videos and stuff where people are saying that it's got to do with like women, and that Star Wars is like the social justice warrior thing at the moment, and women are wrecking Star Wars and stuff, and it's just insane, and it like makes me not want to be a fan of Star Wars, just as I'm starting to be a fan of Star Wars because I'm really getting into these ones now. And it's things like this, or it's just the odd affinity that people have for Star Wars in general, so that they love the original so much and just can't like accept that there are new ones coming out and changing things up a little bit. There's a few things, and people are really taking it out on Solo, and it's really just a small movie that doesn't really deserve that kind of thing, because it's really not going for something groundbreaking. It's really not trying to be the biggest movie of all time. It's just a small, fun little adventure, and that's really all it is. But, you know, people are going to hate it, because, as they say, no one hates Star Wars quite like a Star Wars fan. And I definitely think that Solo, a Star Wars film, story, whatever it's called, definitely proves that. I don't know, man. I liked it, so I guess you can mark me down as the one guy in the world who did.